What's going on, everybody? Doc from Average Gamer Guys back yet again. More Halo Wars 2 action. In keeping with the Sergeant Johnson DLC hype, we're doing a two-part video series where I'm actually going to talk about the DLC breakdown. I'm going to break down the leader powers for multiplayer. I'm going to break down the Blitz cards in a separate video. This one will be multiplayer focused. And I'm going to talk about my initial thoughts, kind of my initial assumptions as well, and some initial strategies that I'm definitely going to be using as soon as the leader drops, just to kind of give myself a way forward and hopefully share some tips with you. If you guys weren't able to catch the stream that went on the other day, or you haven't checked out the update video that we did, kind of revealing the whole thing, make sure to go check that out. Also, if you're more interested in Blitz, like I said, we'll have another video up probably coming up at the same time, so just click over and take a look at that. But so for this one, we're going to jump in, we're going to take a look at the multiplayer. We'll go through the skill tree and the leader power-ups first, and then I'll give you some of my initial thoughts with a little bit of gameplay background going on. So jumping right in, taking a look at the leader tree, the first two abilities we have are remote sensors. Again, this increases the line of sight for all buildings and capture points, which I think is going to be pretty neat. Again, it seems like Sergeant Johnson overall is a little bit more defensive, especially considering multiplayer, and we'll get to that overall strategy and some of the other things, kind of the conclusion I've come to, as well. It seems like quite a bit of the community as I've kind of been checking through the forums and such. But remote sensor seems to be a pretty good initial capability for us to be able to use with line of sight. And then we do get restoration drones as well in that first tier, which I think is it's obviously the earliest we can get, but I think he's one of only maybe one other that gets it so quickly. So it's going to be kind of interesting. This is actually a pretty tough choice. Restoration drones is actually quite good near the beginning, so it'll be kind of interesting. Then we kind of start to get into another more specific one, which is digging in here, which is another passive power. It adds health siphoning to standard turrets. It also reduces cost of bunker and turret drops. Now this is one of those, this is probably going to be a pretty quick second pick, depending on, again, how you want to play. But if you think you might have the time to get into that third tier leader power, his actually second and third tiers are actually pretty chock full of things we would want to get. So digging in, quite good. The one just after that, still in the second tier, is actually going to be his bunker drop as well, which we'll see here in just a second. So bunker drop, if you're not familiar, is again an active power which drops a garrisonable bunker. It does cost population. The first level of it is 3 population, but it can hold 4 units. You can upgrade it again to a second tier, which allows you to put more units in it. It is just infantry, so it's kind of interesting to note. So as we kind of continue through, EMP Mac Blast is another Sergeant Johnson specific, which fires a Mac round, which is going to disable enemy air and vehicle units. It's also going to boost the damage of your friendly air and vehicles in that AoE. Pretty good. I think the damage for this is going to be a little bit reduced compared to a regular Mac Blast, but as well it kind of should be. Mostly just due, again, to the additional bonus effects that we're seeing. So Pelican Transport, again, I think everybody's pretty familiar with this. It's going to transport your selected units from one point to another, and does not require vision, which is pretty neat. So one of those capabilities to move pretty fast across the map, but I don't think one of the top tier abilities that people are going to get, at least initially. I see the passive power of reducing costs for bunkers, the bunker drop itself, and then EMP Mac Blast being kind of near the top tier for those picks. Siege turret drop coming up into the 4th tier for us. Again, just like a standard turret, this actually just drops a siege turret, so that longer range focus and capability. Pretty good lifespan on these, to be honest, and rightfully so, just for the sole fact that they need to be able to shoot a little bit farther, but again, weak up front. We have Mech Overcharge, which for a short time, all your mechs are going to essentially become invulnerable, and they're also going to receive a speed boost. We saw this get played a little bit in the Blitz the other day. Pretty good. The speed boost is pretty good. Obviously, invulnerability is pretty good, and the mechs definitely kind of need this speed boost. And then the top tier leader powers here, Combat Salvage. Everybody should be pretty familiar with this. While active, first 8 units that die instantly come back to your base, mechanical units. And then Digging in Deep is going to be the big one. This is a passive power which allows you to purchase to construct any base building slot for free. So essentially you're building all of your outer buildings, you're building your armories, you're building any of your supply resources 100% for free, which again has the capability to be quite good. So with that review pretty much over, I do want to jump into and kind of just continue the conversation and just give again my initial thoughts for how I think Sergeant Johnson is generally going to play out, and how I think certain specific leader powers are going to kind of fare in multiplayer. Again, by no means an expert here, but having quite a bit of time in the game, I feel pretty comfortable based on kind of the information that we know, getting to see some of this stuff used in the live stream the other day gives me a pretty good sense, I think, of generally where it will fit. So again, as I discussed, I think Sergeant Johnson definitely seems like he's going to be a little bit more of a defensive leader. Here's the reason I say that. He generally has a few more passive powers than active powers. He really only has the single damage dealing EMP Mac Blast. Obviously the siege turret does, but that's really essentially it. You see him heavily focused on restoration, heavily focused on those passive powers, combat salvage, bringing his units back. He doesn't even have a leader power that actually drops in any units either. So it's going to be relatively hard for you to take him on the offensive, keep the pressure up, just for the sole fact of if you lose a few units, comparatively to somebody like Forge, you can bring in quite a bit of units. Especially their top tier leader powers, you're bringing in quite a hefty army, essentially just for resources without having to wait for the build or anything based on the leader tree. Sergeant Johnson, his top tier leader powers obviously being combat salvage and digging in deep. Digging in deep for me seems like one of those leader powers that, while not great, obviously kind of more towards the beginning of the game or even really in the mid game, really late game when you're kind of pushing for bases and each base space is important, and the resources that you're using for those base spaces, essentially getting all of that stuff for free, is just going to help you really escalate and ramp up faster than your opponents. I see him being a pretty pivotal player, especially when we start to talk 2s and definitely in 3s. I think a 3 team with a balance of somebody that's a leader that might be more kind of assault focused, maybe a Consano or a Shipmaster if you can use them in that sense, with somebody else that maybe has a more better mid game, and then paired up with a Sergeant Johnson that can really overdrive into the late game, and also help play some of the defense up front, I think is going to be really key. Again, just hitting on that point, defense up front, the bunker drop, I really do like it. I think it's going to be really neat. The fact that you can provide an additional structure that really does have a ton of health, you're going to be making infantry at the beginning. I think this is one of those things that you get that that leader power, and you're able to drop that thing in a strategic place, relatively close to your base maybe. It's really going to help you kind of defend against that rush. You can definitely help your teammates out, because you can drop it in anywhere, and the fact that you're going to be able to garrison a couple of your infantry units up, help keep them alive, help keep them dealing more damage over time, I really think plays to his initial ability to be defensive and help with that defense, and then extend into that late game. And again, obviously the fact that he has the siege turret really just goes to show that I think he is a little bit more defensive-minded player, and that's another great leader power that you can drop in, behind your base, or up on a ridge to go a little bit maybe onto the offensive. But you throw a bunker down, garrison a few units up, and then drop a siege turret down behind him, behind your base, maybe if you're trying to repel an early rush, and I think you're not going to have any issues with that. Now again, what he gains in defensive capability, I do think he loses in offensive capability. The Mantis, I think, is a good overall around unit. I think it's going to be relatively comparable to the Warthog as far as damage, but what you lose there again is the fact of speed. The Warthog you get some great speed. The Mantis does take the slot of that Warthog, so that's just kind of consideration. Now you do have kind of a more top-end unit with the Colossus, so I think that again kind of shows more towards the later game of those units being a little bit more, something that you want to call in, and that's going to help kind of overpower on the battlefield. But those take headquarters level 3, so it's just kind of an interesting trade-off. The Mantis does get some pretty good initial upgrades though, so it could be a unit that will definitely help to balance things, I think. But you just got to consider the speed. If you're one of those players that likes to go on the offense, I won't say rush because that's a relative term to some people, and honestly, I don't see Sergeant Johnson being a great rush player unless you're going to use a standard rush strategy anyways, which in which case I don't think you're probably not pumping out Mantises anyways. But we will see, because as we've seen before, sometimes the balances aren't always in effect from the get-go. But from what we saw yesterday, it seems like good overall around unit. But like I said, you're losing a little bit of the speed from Warthog. That's really just kind of my initial thoughts. I do like him. I think he's going to be awesome. I will say a few notes. I think his leader is going to be quite good. But again, for me, the fact that he gets that aura healing ability just, again, kind of continues to show me that he's going to be a little bit more on the defensive side. It's an awesome ability, the fact that you can get an army going, and you can call that in, and it's essentially just going to be like restoration drones or anything else like that, which heals multiple units at a time at a pretty quick rate. Again, I think he's going to help to round out team. I think he's going to be a great team player, essentially. Somebody that if you're playing 2s and definitely playing 3s, I think you're going to want to have somebody that kind of specializes in him. And then again, the digging in deep, and even the initial one where your turrets cost a little bit less and get that siphon ability, all good things. Increased turret range, all that stuff just kind of helps you prep and play a little bit more on the defensive side. So I'm really excited for him. I hope you guys are. I think it's going to be absolutely awesome, and I'll be curious to see. It'll be interesting to look back on this video here in a week or 2 weeks and kind of see if my initial predictions and kind of thoughts end up panning out. Obviously, so the team did talk about no initial balance updates when the DLC does drop, which again we're hoping should be essentially tomorrow from when you guys are seeing this, so Monday. So hopefully we'll get it then. And if we do, obviously, if you guys are, fans of the channel, have been around for a while, know that we're going to have a ton of content coming. We're going to be doing a stream as soon as it hits to kind of just give some gameplay and go over it. And then, like we've always done, we'll do updates to our spreadsheet. We'll talk all of the units in depth. We'll do some comparisons for the hero, all the normal stuff we do. We'll jump into some blitz. We'll jump into some multiplayer, and we'll test some of these strategies out, because I do think I do play a little bit more, especially in multiplayer, a little bit more on the defensive side. To be honest, I kind of like to go to the mid game and into the later game. So I think this is a leader that not only am I going to enjoy because it's new, but I do think I'll enjoy it for the sole fact that seems to kind of fit more into my playstyle, and having some more abilities, the capability to, again, drop in a bunker, garrison up some units, have restoration drones really early, and then drop a siege turret in, again, all things to kind of help fight initial pushes and stuff like that. I think definitely rolls into my playstyle. So again, doing a 2-part series, so this was the multiplayer part. Go ahead, check out, it should be uploaded at the same time. Going to do a Blitz one as well where we break down all the cards. I've been Doc with Average Gamer, guys. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you all so very much for the support. The video we posted the other day with just the Sergeant Johnson news got absolutely awesome views and a bunch of likes, and awesome comments too. It was really great reaching out and talking to some of you guys, getting your initial reactions and your thoughts, and I look forward to continuing that conversation, and so does Sloth. He will be with me hopefully when this drops on Monday, and we will be knocking out a bunch more content. So thank you guys, those of you that subscribed. We really do appreciate it. If you're new and you're just checking out some of our videos, please do make sure to subscribe. It definitely helps us out. let us know down in the comments if you've got any additional questions or thoughts as far as the leader. I do want to hear what you guys think about Sergeant Johnson and maybe how you plan to play with him. There you go. When he does finally arrive, and yeah. So thank you guys so much, very much again. We do have a Twitter up as well. That's in the description. We also have the Xbox Average Gamer Guys Club, so be sure everybody can join. Go ahead, join that, and those are all just good platforms again, especially if you are subscribed to the channel, to just get more updates for when we're putting out new content. Thank you guys so very much, and we will check you next time.